Beavemanites and Docutrons, assemble!
Okay, so back in the day, I was way above the wave, and I traded in the girls for the
I'll say, so after the long-awaited mess up on this end, and this is my problem with technology, there doesn't seem to be a very good way of doing remote podcasting. I mean, that's just my opinion.
You figure with the technology the way it is, there should be a way.
Well, I mean, I think that you're just always subject to any type of internet connection, whether it's yours or mine, because it's not like I'm not quite as remote as you are where I'm at, but it's in the, what we call the mitten, obviously not quite the middle finger, but more like between the tip of the ring finger and pinky area here in Michigan, and they don't have the fastest internet connection either, I don't believe.
Okay.
But we're gonna try to salvage what we've got so far. And the good thing, I guess, is that we really didn't start talking about our topic anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So if we're able to save that first clip, then hey, good for us. If not, then we just start from where we are right now.
Yeah, sounds good.
And if that happens, by the way, folks, this is Beaveman in the dock, and I'm the Beaveman, and this is Micah.
Hi.
Hello, once again. Now, if your cell phone service goes out, then we're totally fucked.
No, actually, the cell phone service up here actually is pretty good. So.
Yeah, you know what's odd about that is I have T-Mobile, and I was up there, and I had great service while I was up there because they like partner with some other phone service, but it doesn't count as roaming. You just pay your T-Mobile bill.
Yeah.
But here in Michigan, where I'm at right now, I've got no freaking service.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. But well, even at my parents' house, I don't have service, and they don't live in some remote area of Michigan. But I can go 2 miles down the road and have service, but not at their house.
Yeah. Funny thing is, my siblings live down in the Phoenix metro area, but on the outside in a suburb. And my sister's house, right in the middle of town, was in the same black hole. It was weird. You can go 200 yards in either direction from her house and get signal, but her house was like a freaking black hole. It was crazy.
It's very frustrating. Because how many years now have we had cell phones for? Well, I mean, we had the giant ones a long time ago, but when I was in the Army, I didn't have a cell phone.
No, me neither.
Eventually, because I was in the 82nd and we were on call all the time, I had a pager, but that took years for me to get a pager.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever. Well, we're talking about ethics. We're talking about ethics today. We've both decided we're pretty ethical. Although I don't know if can you say, I would say that maybe I'm ethical for the most part, but sometimes I don't want to say I'm ethical. I choose the ethics that I'm choosy about my ethics.
Okay.
For example, I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, I like porn. How about that? Is that a good one?
You like pork?
Porn, not pork. Well, I know I love pork. Well, I mean, well, let's be honest. I mean, I like porn, but I love pork.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
maybe that's not considered. Maybe looking at porn is not ethical.
Okay.
So I can't be 100% ethical, and I'm sure nobody's 100% ethical.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, if you do everything, all of your actions are benefit mankind overall from an altruistic sense, then you would do things that I would consider unethical. It always goes back to that whole thing with, is it okay to steal bread if you have a starving family?
Right. Okay.
And I would say that, of course, situation dictates, but if it was a starving family and you didn't kill anybody and you stole a loaf of bread, I'm not necessarily going to say it's okay to chop your hand off.
Right. I agree with that.
And I don't know that anybody can I don't know that I'm sure this is one of those things where philosophers go crazy just contemplating these things and they lose sleep at night. I am not one of those people.
Yeah. Me neither.
No, I'm more likely to lose sleep at night trying to figure out, like we said in our first podcast, where does this Yoda child come from?
Yeah.
That I will lose sleep over. Deciding whether or not to chop somebody's hand off, I'm not going to lose sleep on that.
No, me neither.
But we were talking about... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, ethics, and of course, ethics is going to change probably in different climates and different even parts of the world. I lived in Mexico for a little while, and of course, there's a lot of things that they do down there that's definitely not what we would do up here. For them, these gangs and cartels and different things like that is definitely is a way of life. It's like they don't know anything else. So we see them as inherently evil, and they see it as a way of life. So, that's where ethics can get a little muddied, I think, there too. But, of course, we know that, we know. We see them as inherently evil.
I think that's a really good point. And
yeah.
I say that I do not see them as inherently evil.
Really?
Well, no, because my mom's from Mexico. My mom is from one of the most dangerous cities in the world. My mom's from Juarez. That's where she grew up.
Right.
And so when I look at it also, I kind of look at it in this respect. I'm like, well, from a standpoint of, does the cartel take care of its own people? Do they provide money? Do they provide security, et cetera, et cetera? In that respect, I'm like, okay, well, I can kind of see that it's like your city or your town or your people having its own private army. And if they're not hurting those people, what can I really say about that if they don't have industry? It's kind of like when you look at the war in Afghanistan, if you were with the Afghanis, and I'm not saying I'm promoting anything, but if you look at them like people and say, well, okay, I can understand if they're combatants and we have to kill them if they're combatants, but from a medical standpoint, if I was a nurse practitioner over in Afghanistan and there was a conflict and the enemy got wounded, but of course, we don't kill them. You can't exactly kill them unless in other words, you can't cross the assault line and then go back and kill them. If you kill them before you cross the assault line, then that's not murder, but otherwise it would be. So we take care of people that are wounded by us.
Right.
And so if I was to take care of them, I would consider that my sworn duty as a healthcare provider, and because they're a human and I'm a human. But I'm sure if you had a conversation with them, and I know this because it was relayed to me by an officer who served over there as a doctor, he told me, he said, I've had frank conversations with them, and what they tell you is this: there's no industry. So what do you expect us to do? Of course we work for a tribal leader. How else do you expect us to get money? How do you expect us to live and to feed our family?
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah. But I mean, the cartel takes it a little bit too far, but still.
They definitely can. But exactly. Yeah, it's a lifestyle. I mean, I ran into it a lot when I was down in Mexico City. I lived down there for 2 years, and the city itself was, there was dangerous parts. There was areas we couldn't go into past 5 o'clock at night. There was times of the year where we had to stay completely enclosed in our apartment for a week because it was just too dangerous to go out even on the street. And so, surrounding all this, talking to the people, it's, this is the way it is. It's almost like they're forced into this lifestyle because you're right. They don't have any other recourse. And so, it's really interesting, from that standpoint, 'cause based on what we believe here. I mean, we are so secure here, basically, that we have so much industry and everything else that we can look out at the rest of the world and judge it, which we shouldn't, but we do. And that's why we say terrorism and these cartels are inherently evil, because, they commit atrocities and everything else. But from their standpoint, it's completely a way of life because they have no other recourse. So.
Right, and we're committing different types of atrocities here, where maybe we're not selling large amounts of drugs and killing our enemies, but then we're also not taking care of our homeless or doing anything about the huge amount of suicides and bullying and mass shootings.
Exactly.
So there's plenty of ways that I'm sure that we're perceived as evil throughout the rest of the world that we don't even consider on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Exactly.
Where we're sitting there, I mean, and I'm guilty of this because I came from, I don't know, I'm not going to blame it on the fact that my parents were poor growing up and I've always wanted to be successful. I'm not going to say that. I think that no matter what, even if my parents were successful, I'd still want to be successful. But that's the whole American mentality, whereas if I was rich, I'd be pretty happy to be rich.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could always be happier with more money, we think.
Right, we think.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say if I had large amounts of money, I would give the majority of it away. But I also can say that I would probably write it off on my taxes.
Right. Yep.
Which again goes back to saying, how ethical am I really? And, I don't really want to beat myself up about it, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I wonder if I actually am ethical.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever think about that? So, I mean, do you have these periods or these moments of reflection to find out if you really are as ethical as you think you are, or are you always striving to be better?
Well, no, I have the thoughts all the time. Could I have handled this situation differently? Could I have, thought about a little more? A lot of times I catch myself wondering, almost not necessarily ethically, but, well, yeah, ethically. So did I make the right decision? So, yeah, I think about it all the time, and especially in medical care. I think about it quite often because sometimes the things that you decide come back, and say, oh, that wasn't right. And then in my personal life, of course, I mean, with my wife and kids and the way that I'm raising them and my kids, especially the way that I'm raising them, am I raising them the right way? Am I raising them the way so that they go out and become productive adults, or am I raising them to be too dependent or, that they can't sustain themselves? So I think about it all the time.
I think about that as well, and you look back and you reflect and you're like, well, did I do the right thing? Or my big problem, I think that I've always thought that I've just been this major asshole and this big dick, and I've tried to do really well by my children, and but I've always I've had these moments where I'm like, I was quite the asshole there, but then I'll go and apologize to my family, and they, I guess they appreciate me apologizing, but then I look back at it and go, well, if I could have just not had that behavior in the first place, then I wouldn't have to apologize it. But on the flip side of that is I did have the behavior and I apologize for it. But I can remember being a child and my parents being complete assholes and saying horrible things to me, but they've never apologized for anything they've ever done. So maybe I'm just not that much better than them, but maybe at least I am a little bit better.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. My father was pretty hard on us, and I actually tend to be a little bit more on the hard side with my kids but and I have had to go in and apologize for being too hard. But yeah, I don't remember my dad ever doing that. and so my behaviors is it's almost like I learned. Well, I mean, I learned it from him, And some of the things that I say and do is exactly what he would have said and done in that same situation, and it completely blows up, and later on you got to pay for it. So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, and for me, I want to break that cycle. Like, I don't want them to be like me. And here's the unfortunate thing, though, is all these times of looking back, I'm like, I was an asshole there, and I'm not really happy with how I felt or what I did. And, I've been in the habit over the years of telling my children, I'm like, I don't want you to be like me. I don't want you to be like me. But I've had my children say to me, well, what exactly is wrong with being like you?
Okay. That's a good question. I wouldn't know how to answer that. Well, I should say I wouldn't know how to answer that, but I would definitely say that, I don't want you to have, a temper like I can get sometimes. I don't want you to have, I'm like you, I want them to break that cycle. I don't want, I feel like I've done things better than my father, but I also feel like I've still done things that I don't want my children to become. And so, breaking the cycle and just saying, I want you to be a better person in that, you have more patience and not as bad of a temper.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's probably the better way to handle it, is to say, okay, well, let me rephrase what I'm saying. I don't want you to have my bad traits. How about that?
Yeah, there we go.
You can be like me all day long, but just don't be the asshole part of me.
Right. Exactly.
Because there's a part of me that says, am I a better person because I'm apologizing for it when I should have just not done it in the first place? I almost wonder, to me, because you feel this huge guilt and you don't want your children to feel like you're a complete asshole that can't admit that they were wrong. But am I apologizing for them, or am I apologizing for me?
Right.
And then if that's the case, if I'm actually apologizing for me, well, then I'm still a selfish prick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which, again, gets you to all these ethical dilemmas that you face, and you could go on and on about it and just beat yourself up about it and try to figure it out.
Right. And it does come down to what makes you feel satisfied after those situations, whether it's more satisfying to think that I was apologizing for them and not for me, or maybe it was for me a little bit. But
Right. And some people, I imagine it's more satisfying. For example, if you get angry, for some people, it's more satisfying just to continue that spiral and to never admit that you were wrong or never apologize for it. And for some reason, I think that that's a human aspect. It just makes you feel better to continue your cycle of being a complete dickhead.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, people, so it's almost like people can't live unless they're in some sort of chaos or some sort of situation like that. They'd rather do that than just make peace and let it go. It kind of baffles me, because at first I'll get angry, but then afterwards I'll make sure make up for it, because I don't like to let it go. I can't do that because it eats me up. So I have to make sure that the situation is resolved to a degree that it doesn't eat at me anymore. And maybe that's selfish too, but I definitely am more satisfied, I think, than just to spiral in hatred and anger, and maybe I'm taking this to another level. But anyway, yeah, there are people that do that, and I see that in my family, in my wife's family, and I just shake my head. I don't know why you do that. I can't do that. So anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I can't do that either. But again, when you look at the question, to me, the question is, should I just continue this cycle of being a complete asshole? Should I apologize it? Am I making myself feel better? Am I making them feel better? Or am I showing that it's okay to be an asshole as long as you apologize for it later? Which is not really the case.
Right.
So I think but I mean, there's things that we get mad about that's completely ridiculous. But, and of course, the saying is true that the people that make you the maddest are the ones that you love the most. And it can be for completely stupid reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now I try to talk myself into it. Now I try to talk myself out of it. And I think I've come a long way of saying, that's really not even important.
Yes.
What the big failure, I think, on my part, I don't do it now. I'm sure I've done it in the past before I had these self-realizations, is saying what you don't want to do. This is the biggest thing that you don't want to do, is you don't want to say, I'm sorry that this happened. But it was because you were a complete asshole in the first place.
Yeah. I told you.
Yeah. I don't want to justify my complete assholeness because you were a jerk first.
Yeah.
But I was justified in this action because of this.
All right.
So anyway, that's my background belief in the whole ethics and of being an asshole thing, and which spiraled out of control of us talking about cartels, apparently.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
But what we're talking about today is the ethics of superheroes, and why. Why is that important?
Because they're idols. They are heroes. They're supposed to embody the good in everybody.
So imagine, if you will, if superheroes were real, if we were actually exposed to, and I'm not just talking about people who were super cops or something like that. I'm talking about people with actual powers.
Mm-hmm. Right, metahumans.
Whatever universe you're living in and what they happen to call them.
Right.
Or whatever comic strip, or, yeah, exactly. And the example that we're using today is Injustice: Gods Among Us, which was based on a video game, which became a comic book series that, if our clip was saved, lasts about 5 years long. I've read them all from the initial Injustice: Gods Among Us.
Yeah, I've read a little bit of some of them. I haven't read all of it, though.
But here's the basic synopsis so we can kind of get on with the discussion. So here's what happens. The Joker, who, in my opinion, is one of the greatest villains of all time.
Oh, totally.
He's an evil, sadistic bastard who does things just because. Decided he was going to fuck with the Blue Boy Scout. And he gets a hold of a nuclear bomb. He rigs up a little thingamabob to Lois Lane's heart. And he sprays Superman in the face with some modified, like the Scarecrow's terror gas or whatever you call it.
The fear gas, yeah.
Yeah, and Superman thinks that Lois Lane is Doomsday. So he picks Lois Lane up, takes her up into the upper atmosphere, and she dies because she doesn't have any oxygen. Her heartbeat stops, and a detonator was rigged to her heart to blow if her heartbeat stopped. And that nuclear bomb goes off and kills everybody in Metropolis.
Yep.
Of course, it wears off. Superman realizes that it wasn't Doomsday. It was Lois Lane. Not only was it Lois Lane, but she was pregnant with her baby at the time.
Yep.
So he accidentally kills Lois Lane and the baby, and inadvertently kills everybody in Metropolis. Although I will say that it's not really his fault. It's clearly the Joker's fault.
Sure.
So now he's mad, and he's Superman. He goes, Batman's interrogating the Joker instead of, kicking his ass, basically. He's interrogating him. And Superman kills the Joker.
Yep.
We must point out, however, that, and I don't remember I don't remember at what point they tell you this, or what point you realize it from reading the comics. I mean, you kind of know in the back of your head that this is not I guess you would say this is not the DC's version of Earth 1, if you will. It's not Earth 1. It's an alternate universe.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because Flash is in one universe separate from where Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are, if I remember correctly.
If it gets really crazy, I mean, gosh, how long have they been Okay. I mean, yeah, so we already know, right, that if we're talking about like Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth X or whatever, if we just go from a basic understanding, if the basic, let's just say this, let's just say like the comics from when we're kids, like the Justice League, if we said that was Earth 1, so at least in that Justice League, we know all the superheroes that are in it.
Right.
So we know that, the Flash is there and Green Lantern's there and Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. Those are the folks that are there, and Martian Manhunter and Shazam, even though he didn't originally start as a DC, whatever.
Right.
And that's the universe that we're looking at. But you know that later on, I can't remember at what point you realize that, hey, this is not Earth 1 or whatever. Alternate Earth.
Was it Dark Justice? I can't remember either.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so the point is, Superman kills Joker. Question number 1. Was he justified in killing the Joker? From an ethical standpoint, being who Superman is.
So here's where I come in and say, do I blame him? No. Was it ethical? And knowing what we see as the chain of events that happens from there, no, it probably wasn't ethical. And it probably would have not started this whole chain of events that happens afterward. But can I blame him? Hardly. Because not only just losing Lois Lane, but the baby and all of Metropolis. I mean that. Yeah, I don't blame him for killing Joker, but I also know that by killing Joker, it sets off a chain of events that becomes completely horrible afterward. So, yeah, that's where that's at. That's where my opinion is at there.
So in other words, if you knew the future, you would say that he's justified or not justified in killing the Joker?
Not justified.
Okay. So
if he knows what he turns into, I kind of, beyond the rage and the grief, I don't know. Maybe I'm going off on the wrong track here. But if there was a way that he was able to see what would happen, I think he might have showed some restraint.
Interesting. Well, I will look at it from two different aspects. I will look at it as myself, who has no superpowers, and I would say that he is justified in killing the Joker if the Joker wasn't in custody. However, the Joker was in custody, and he just kills him.
Yeah.
As a superhero, I would say that it's the same thing. I would say that he could kill him if he wasn't in custody, but now that he's in custody, who I'm not allowed to judge him, now the law is what is supposed to prevail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Having said that, I think that he was totally justified. He's still totally justified in killing the Joker for what he did. But at the same time, if he did that, though, now he has to face justice himself.
Right, absolutely.
And that's what doesn't happen.
It doesn't, and which actually ends up governments making wrong choices there too. But, and I always go back to, the whole thing of, why was Joker let go again and again and again? Well, it's to perpetuate the story, of course.
Of course.
To keep that going. But, of course, Batman should have probably killed him a long time ago. But it just, it perpetuated the story. But, and Batman still tries to cling to his own set of ethics, by not killing him, I guess. But, why? You always think about that. Why wasn't he killed before? Because, every time Arkham's not going to do anything to him. He's going to get out and just do exactly what he was before. Because, anytime he was in Arkham, he ran the show in Arkham too. So, like Harley Quinn.
Right. He convinces a psychiatrist to become a bad guy.
Right. So, now, and the Superman, I think, even talked to Batman about that afterwards, why didn't you? Why did you keep letting him go? And so, from that standpoint, Superman was justified in that standpoint. But yes, I think he should have faced justice for that. Absolutely.
Well, as Superman is basically an all-powerful being. Of course, as time goes by, throughout the evolution of the comics, it seems like he gets more and more powerful. Mm-hmm. For example, at least here's my opinion on Superman, if Superman is, and I guess they explain this because I haven't read the 50 billion comics that are out there. First of all, let me say I don't even like Superman. First of all, but let me just say this: if he is becoming more and more powerful as time goes by, it used to be, the theory was obviously that Superman gets his strength from our sun. So if you took Superman out of our universe to another universe that didn't have a yellow sun, he wouldn't be Superman after a period of time, basically after the effects of the yellow sun wears off.
Right.
But now it seems like he stores that up for a goddamn millennia, so it doesn't matter if you take him away from it or not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So it's everything as time goes by, as the reader wants more, obviously, and as the people that are writing about Superman now when he's, how old? How old is he, 80? I don't know. How long has he been writing? Whatever. The point is that I guess they make him what the audience wants, or what they wanted as kids, and now they're the ones writing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he just gets badder and badder ass. So anyway,
Right.
So Superman decides that he's going to take that the world is not safe on its own, and he's going to do what he probably should have done in the first place, and he's going to rule us with an iron fist. He's going to end war. He's going to end conflict. He's going to bring about the peace of mankind, and if anyone steps out of line, he's going to crush them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is that they did allude to this in one of the movies, Superman versus Batman. They alluded to a vision, or that not alluded. Batman basically had Bruce Wayne had a vision where they came back and he was shown a future where Superman had done that. And although in the movie he blamed Batman for Lois's death, not Joker, or maybe he was blaming Batman through Joker. I don't know. But it was just interesting that they put that in that movie, because quite frankly, after I watched that part, I was like, wait a minute, what? why would they put that in there? But it's just interesting that they did that they took that part out of the whole thing and put that in the movie. And of course, we could talk about the movies all we want, but we want to concentrate just on the comic books, because of course, the movies is going to take their own liberty with what they want to do with it. But I still think it's interesting that they did do that.
That is interesting. And you know what's really interesting about that?
What's that?
I don't remember anything about that movie because I hated it.
No, did you? I didn't like it either. To tell you the truth, I mean, I liked Man of Steel okay, and I liked the Justice League okay, but yeah, that Superman versus Batman, it was worthless. It was totally worthless.
I was just waiting for them to kiss.
Exactly. Yeah, especially the part where he said, "Save Martha," what? And all of a sudden his whole mind changes. Changes. But anyway.
No, the saving grace of that movie for me was Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I'm like, oh, finally, somebody's a badass.
Yes.
But and the sad thing is, when you were just bringing that up just now, I was like, you know what? I should probably watch that movie again so I know what the fuck he's talking about. But in my mind's eye, I can't convince myself to do it.
Yeah, it's just a short part, and it's weird because there was no segue. It was just all of a sudden Bruce Wayne sitting in his Batcave doing something on the computer, and all of a sudden this vision comes out of nowhere.
So I wonder if they're going to try to make a multiverse thing then.
Maybe. That's possible.
Because I know that, and I have not seen and I know that the TV series, and we're kind of getting off, well, not really, it's not off topic, it's comics. I know that, I mean, I like The Flash, the TV show. But I haven't seen this. Yeah, I haven't seen this most recent season, but apparently Flash from the movies is in Flash, the TV show. So they're tapping into the multiverse.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they were doing from that movie.
Maybe so. Open up a whole new other line of movies.
Right. Yeah. And just as a side comment, I don't understand how DC has such a hard time making movies, why their movies suck, when their animated movies are so fucking good and their TV shows are pretty decent. And I know why their animated movies are good, because the comic writers are writing those movies.
Yeah, exactly, because the comics are great.
Right.
You know, the comics are still good, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know if it, you know, it's because the movies. Right, exactly. You're right. It's not the comic book writers doing the movie.
No.
It's J.J. Abrams. Well, did he do any of those movies? Or Christopher Nolan? You know. So anyway, although I have to admit, Heath Ledger as Joker that was really good.
Right.
He did really good as a Joker. But anyway, I digress.
Well, I think the Christian Bale movies were good. I'm talking about this new stuff that they just keep, and they did a good job with Aquaman, because they went all out on it as if they're thinking they were never going to have another Aquaman movie.
Right.
But the Batman versus Superman I thought was terrible, and Justice League I wasn't impressed with either. And I was just like, God, seriously, stop trying to be Marvel and stop trying to build your universe instead of trying to cram everything into one movie.
Right.
But
yeah.
So,
they're definitely going about it wrong. They need to let the comic book writers write the movies.
That's my opinion.
It'd be better. Right.
Let's get Kevin Smith to write a movie, for God's sake.
Yeah.
That'd be a good fucking movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, so Superman decides he's gonna rule with an iron fist, and obviously the Justice League is gonna split up, or the heroes are gonna split up a little bit, and I know that they do that because they have to. But what I was surprised was who they picked to be on what sides.
Yeah.
And do you know much about Wonder Woman from the comics?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. I've learned more, I guess, from these movies, which is probably not a good thing, than the comics. But I was surprised at the side she took, definitely. You know, on what I read. Like I said, I haven't read it all, but what I read, I think there was a little bit of I can't even say a crush. I think she was in love with him from the start, but, you know, Lois Lane was always there, and now that Lois Lane's not there, it almost makes me wonder if that's the love thing, why she chose that side. But we also know she's a fierce warrior, so she loves war.
Right.
She loves peace, but she loves war. But now this whole thing has given her a new avenue. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
Which, and I hate to switch comic series, or I hate to switch comic creators, but it's almost like, yes, she's a superhero, but is she really? Because, like you said, she's a warrior. So it goes back to saying you have to have a strong army to promote peace. But if that's all she's ever trained for is to be war, so she likes war, she likes discipline, she likes an army. Mm-hmm. And so maybe she can't help but get involved with stuff that maybe, I think as a superhero, even though you would see things that are wrong with the world, you must understand that because of what you are, humankind should be allowed to police itself also.
Right.
Where if you've got something that's changing everything in the world based on you as an authoritarian dictatorship or a high counselor or whatever, are you really allowing human life to play out?
Right. And, with Batman, I think that's why, his focus I think, I mean, he was just so focused on Gotham City for so long and just trying to clean it up that he realized, I think that's why he went global, so to say, in his duties. You know, he felt that he needed to save the world, not just Gotham, but I think he felt like that, you know, the Justice League was something to handle the big problems and let the humans handle their own stuff. And so I think that was Batman's view, you know, at some point where he's like, you know what, Gotham can take care of itself. I'm going to focus on these bigger problems. I think that's what they were generally wanting to do at first, but then, you know, of course it got all turned around and went that other direction. But it was interesting, you know, how Batman changed his view.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book right now, and we'll have to have our own podcast about it, which is it's called The Ethics of Batman or something like that. So I was just diving into that. I've got these books that my wife got me for Christmas. One's like The Psychology of Batman, one's like The Ethics of Batman, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll have to have a discussion on Batman, which would probably be, in my opinion, will probably be like a 4-part podcast. Podcast. I'm not sure. And even this one, I'm sure is going to be like a 2 or 3-parter because we're just barely tapping the surface here. Looking at the cast of characters. So what I was wondering about, though, because I don't know much about Wonder Woman other than Linda Carter, who I still am in love with. That was my main exposure to Wonder Woman. And this Wonder Woman that we're seeing now, and not just with the movies, but the Wonder Woman of the comics, she is on par with Superman.
Well, yeah, power-wise, yeah, absolutely.
And I never realized that. I don't remember. I don't know at what point in time Wonder Woman achieved the ability of flight. I didn't know that she was bulletproof and all those things. And I didn't know that she would have been able to fight toe-to-toe with Superman.
Right.
So I don't know when all that happened. I don't know if that was with the birth of like the New 52 or if that's always been the case, because I'm going to actually have to, this is my new plan for comic series wise. The next series I'm going to start reading about Wonder Woman.
Right. Yeah. Because we remember too that she used to have that invisible jet. Right. Right. So as far as I knew, that's how she got around. Having the power of flight. That's not classic Wonder Woman.
Actually, and now that I think about it, it might be even older than, it has to be older than the New 52, because wasn't the, who's the Wonder Girl? Wasn't in the Teen Titans, wasn't she flying?
You know what? Honestly, that I don't know.
See, now I'm going to have to look and see when, I'm actually going to have to do a wiki search and see when did she start flying? I don't know. But I mean, here's the good point though is, how Batman's always got contingency plans for everything. Should anybody go rogue or whatever, or if he has to kill him or, that sort of thing. He's always got a plan for everything.
Right.
The plan for rogue Superman has been Wonder Woman. But if she's with Superman, how is that your plan for a Superman that goes rogue?
He's going to have to come up with kryptonite weapons.
Right.
Which I think he might have.
Yeah, but, he does. I mean, as the series goes on, and then they talk about it. There's a point in the comics where they're kind of having little flashbacks where Superman is like fighting Wonder Woman like with a sword or something, and she's trying to teach him how to use it, and he's making jokes and being goofy, and Batman basically tells him that, hey, dummy, you can't just your problem is that you have no skill because you're Superman. You don't really know how to fight. You don't have a fighting style. You don't know how to fight. So if you actually had to fight somebody like Wonder Woman, you'd get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Because she knows how to fight. She knows how to fight with weapons, and she knows how to fight in general, and you don't. You rely on the fact that you're Superman.
Right. On your power too much.
Right. So what I'm looking at is the selection, or the comic selection, of the heroes that go with Superman. So now you've got two of the most powerful beings. You've got Superman and Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. And on the opposite side, you've got Batman, who is not a superhero.
Right.
He has no superpowers. He's just world's greatest detective. He's got a lot of money. He's got cool toys.
Yeah.
He's got his own set of ethics, and he's got a plan.
Right.
And he is admittedly not a superhero.
Exactly.
So no powers. Here's the problem, and that's why it's called Gods Among Us, obviously, is because everyone really with superpowers that are godlike migrates over to Superman to decide that this world domination is a better idea than letting the humans police themselves.
Right.
The one that surprised me quite a bit, and it's a writer selection, I was pretty surprised that Shazam went with Superman.
Yeah, when we look back, we can see that there's quite a few collaborations, where Shazam and Superman work together. I mean, not just Justice League, but fighting Black Adam, and when Shazam first came into his power, I think Superman was his first contact, I think, with the larger world. So I think the Shazam thing is kind of in its own way a hero worship,
right?
Because of his experience with Superman, and he may be seeing that it's wrong what he's doing, but he can't leave his mentor or his I would say mentor. I would say that. And so, or maybe he's finally decided, this is where I want to be. Maybe I want to be dominant. Maybe I'm tired of, the whole ethical thing. I just want to be dominant. So, but I think it is. I think with Shazam, it's a hero worship thing.
I think you're absolutely right, because we have to remember that Shazam is Billy Batson, who's varying on how old he is. I don't know, 14, 15, 12, even whatever. But you're right. His first experience, or who his mentor was, before even Superman knew that he was a kid, they were talking with each other and whatever. And so, yeah, you're right. I think that that's what it is. I think that at that age of Billy Batson, even though and here's the problem I have with Shazam, but I'll get with that in a second. At Billy Batson's age, obviously, he's going to go with Superman, because Superman represents all that is supposed to be good and right and righteous. And so he's going to go with him. So he's looking at it from that perspective of a child. But here's the problem that I have with Shazam. Shazam is supposed to be a totally different person when he says Shazam. He used to be Captain Marvel. He's just Shazam now. But when he would become, quote, Captain Marvel, he's not really Billy anymore. He's Captain Marvel.
Yes.
And so as Captain Marvel, he's supposed to have the wisdom of King Solomon. Well, does that fit with the wisdom of King Solomon, what Superman is doing? And I know that with the New 52 that there was a period of time where they changed what the Shazam stood for and, whatever, but now he's back to being Shazam, I think. But again, still, it doesn't fit with him being a different person. What it's more like now, in my opinion, in the cartoons, or, if you watch the Teen Titans, or if you watch the little Shazam movies or whatever, it's like he is Shazam, but he's Billy Batson Shazam. He doesn't become somebody else. He's just a grown-up Billy Batson with the powers of Shazam.
Yes. Well, and that's what that movie, the new movie that just came out about it, that's what you're led to believe, that he doesn't, personality-wise and everything else, he doesn't change, even though he's in an adult body, he's still a 14-year-old kid.
Right.
And so, through the comics, and I've kind of been a little while away, but, does Billy Batson ever actually really grow up? Still being able to turn into Shazam, does his ideas change as an adult to what he was as a boy? But, of course, that's kind of speculation. you're right. We can do 4 parts of any of these guys, I think. So, I don't know, but I definitely agree that, Shazam is there because it's Superman, and there's nothing else.
Right. So I think that if you talk about selection, I agree with you. I think Wonder Woman likes order, and she's not above cracking heads, and she's not above killing people because we know that she has.
And she has a secret love for Superman.
Right. And I think that's
maybe not so secret.
Yeah, it's not so secret. It's not so secret
Right.
because in other comic series they have a daughter together.
That's right.
And that's because in Frank Miller's Batman, they have a daughter together.
And isn't it? Well, no, not the. So it's not the Teen Titans. Yeah, there was. Well, there was another. Oh, maybe it was the Frank Miller. Okay, I think that was the Frank Miller.
I think it's the Frank Miller one.
Yeah.
But so we know what Wonder Woman's most likely motivation is. We think we've got Shazam's down. Okay, so the next perplexing one is why he's there. Why is, in my opinion, probably the most ethical of all of them, or the biggest heart, is the Flash.
Right.
Why would the Flash, and maybe it's just because it's a different universe, but why would the Flash go with Superman?
Yeah, that one's tough.
Where we've got the Flash, who's a forensic cop.
Right.
He knows the difference between right and wrong. He knows the legal system. Why would he go with Superman and not with Batman? I mean, that's his code too. His code is the Flash doesn't kill people.
No. Yeah, you're right. That's a tough one. I there was times where I remember, and maybe this was kind of more on the show than the comics, where there were times where he did have some dark times, when, what's her name, his fiance, or do they ever get married?
Yeah, I think they get married before he disappears. She ends up dying. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's
but I seem to remember there was a dark time where something happened to her, something like that. So I don't know if maybe he related to Superman in a way that he thought of, like he agreed that with Lois Lane's death, causing this chain reaction, he was experiencing something of his own. I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws here, but he went with Superman because he agreed, based on the cruelty, or based on what happened with Lois, and then subsequently based on what happened on the government trying to kidnap, or did kidnap, in fact, Superman's parents, which made him even more pissed off. That maybe at that point Flash had some sort of affinity to that. You know what I mean? That he agreed with Superman that that these things need to be in better check.
But again, it looks at who appoints them as the ones who are going to be doing that when there's already governments in place.
Oh, apparently they did it on their own.
Right.
and maybe there was a certain amount. I don't, because we know that the only person alive that could match Flash's speed was Superman. Could there have been maybe a fear factor there?
Mm-hmm.
That he was too scared to go against Superman.
Well, it's interesting though, if you look at the different comics, and if you were just looking at specifically like just a Flash comic, for example, and the evolution of Flash over the years, there's point in times where they hint that the Flash is the most powerful superhero out of all of them. Because of what? Because of just the things that he can do, run through time, and use the Speed Force, and Superman can't use the Speed Force, or just the different things that he can do. That he could go. I mean, theoretically, if you're in Superman, they don't ever say that Superman's faster than the Flash.
That's true. I mean, they try. I think they try to allude to. I mean, I think they try to allude to it at certain points, but and I think there was kind of an evolution with that too. I think there was a point where they were the same speed, but Flash had moved forward a little bit. I'm trying to remember when that was, but
yeah. And there's always saying that Flash is the fastest, and he's even the Flash. He's the fastest speedster.
Right.
So again, I think
there is more than one speedster. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that he probably is. So theoretically, if Flash is the fastest, if he's faster than Superman, then that would make him more powerful than Superman.
Yes.
So again, like if you were just reading just one comic series, obviously they're going to try to make theirs the best. And again, that goes the same with, and he even says it at one point in the Injustice. So if you look at Hal Jordan, who's the Green Lantern, one of the Green Lanterns, there are periods of time also in his comics that I can remember specifically, and I think they make mention of it too in Steve Miller's Batman. Not Steve Miller. Frank Miller's Batman. Steve Miller. Frank Miller's Batman, that Green Lantern is potentially the most powerful superhero in the universe and doesn't require the ring anymore or something like that.
Yeah, and I actually read. I read there was another. It was another like little spin-off comic. I don't even remember where I read it. That he, at some point, Hal Jordan was stripped of his Green Lantern. His powers, and whether he did something wrong, and the Green Lantern Corps stripped that power from him. But he ended up being able to retain a lot of that power without having it. But then I think later on it was reinstated. So I think it might have been just a little spin-off or something. But there was it looked like there was a point where he had that stripped away from him and he got it back.
Well, I mean, he loses it in Injustice, but I know what you're talking about. There has been times, I think, throughout the whole series where he's lost his ring or whatever, or for whatever reason. Right. But yeah, there's mention of it that he might be the most powerful being in the universe because of being able to manipulate it. And if any of the listeners can tell us what the fuck we're talking about, that would be great. But there is a point in time, I think, where there was mention that he was the most powerful. But then there's, again, if you go over to spin-offs also, there's mention that Plastic Man is actually the most powerful superhero in the universe. So,
man, that's I haven't heard about Plastic Man.
Well, because you can't even really you can't destroy Plastic Man, really.
Right.
And so later on, you'll see stuff with Plastic Man. Plastic Man's an Injustice. I mean, they just keep opening up all these different doors into the universe, which is, and well, like I said, it spans for 5 years. So after a while, you're like, what the fuck is this ever gonna fucking end? Like, right. Who else are they going to pull into us that say, oh, this is our last hope if we can just find Plastic Man, or this is our last hope if we can go to an alternate universe and find He-Man.
Right.
Which actually I think happens in the second Injustice series, the different video game, because I read a part of that where He-Man came and fought Superman.
Really?
Yeah. So it gets, it's going to get all kinds of crazy. But again, you have to look at it and go, it's a different universe.
Well, yeah, they might as well just pull in Marvel then.
Right. Well,
yeah. Can Thor beat Superman? So, yeah.
Well, I guess Thor in the movies, probably not. Thor in the comics, I would say so, yeah.
Probably so, yeah.
But, I mean, they made the Hulk wimpy in the movie, so, he's pretty tough. But
right.
Who else? Who else have we got selection-wise? I mean, then we're looking at the opposite side. We've got Batman, who's saying that he shouldn't have killed Joker, and he's not on board with this iron fist of the world, basically.
Right.
But I think, again, if you look at Batman, what you were talking about, where Batman decides that, and I think you're probably making reference to, what was it, Batman Incorporated? where he wants like a Batman-esque person in different cities as one network with resources that come directly from Bruce Wayne for financial backing.
Yeah.
In order to spread out throughout the world.
Right. Did I allude to that? I was trying to remember.
Didn't you? Didn't you? I mean, what you saying? Well, you made a good point that Batman stepped away kind of from Gotham to say that there's bigger fish to fry. But then I think but I think he comes back. And this is kind of goes about where I said that, we kind of need to discuss Batman, because in my opinion, Batman makes the wiser decision. Batman, when he stays in Gotham, that's where he should be. Does he need to go to all these different places when crime is always going to be there in Gotham, big and small? And if you just take care of your piece of the pie, and if other people take care of their piece of the pie, then you're not spreading yourself thin for this quote greater good, when you could do stuff like we say here. You got to fix your own backyard.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And well, now with the death of Joker, how bad is Gotham going to be? Yes, there's other villains, but I don't think they were near as bad as Joker was. So how bad is Gotham going to be without Joker?
Well, and crime is crime, and Batman states that throughout all of his comics. If he'll stop a jewel thief. He'll stop crime. To him, crime is crime. And obviously there is some crime that is much worse, where he has to make a decision. Do I stop this person that I'm chasing who's, a petty criminal, or do I stop the big criminal or whatever? And again, that goes into the ethics of Batman, saying he thinks that all crime is crime, but some of it's not equal, and you have to make those hard decisions about what to do.
Right.
The interesting thing that it's hard for us to wrap our mind around, and it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it because it's been for so long. If you look at the breakdown of time-wise, really, I think that from the time that Batman hit the scene to now, even though it's been 70 years of comics or whatever, it's a probably like less than a 10-year time span.
Yeah, especially, as far as bringing in the first Robin, and then him becoming Nightwing, and then bringing in a second Robin, and then you got Batwoman, and it seems like it only seems to be that, you're right, that much of a time span.
Because from the introduction of Robin to the time he becomes Nightwing, I think it's supposed to be 7 years. 6 or 7 years, something like that. Even though we know it's been, even though Nightwing's been Nightwing since 1970 something or whatever.
Right.
But really, it's supposed to be only that time frame. Because otherwise, Batman would be 100 fucking years old or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
which he can't be.
Well, he clearly is not. He clearly is not 100 years old.
Yeah. Right.
Further divisions than we see, and I will probably talk about Batman's team later, but let's just keep talking about Superman's team for now. Mm-hmm. Here's the interesting one, is that Damian goes with Superman. I don't think that that's a far stretch. I think that makes the most sense.
And I don't know, again, I don't profess to know a whole lot about that story. I mean, we know Damian is Batman's son, right?
Right.
And he becomes, of course, the second Robin. Or is it the third Robin?
Well, technically he would be you've got Dick, you've got Jason, and you've got Tim. So he would be the fourth. Right.
I was thinking there was actually a couple more in there somewhere. But,
well, there's a girl in Frank Miller's Batman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, not
but
counting
that's later.
Batgirl.
But that's later. Yeah,
right.
She's Robin.
Right. So, to me, the fact that he actually is Batman's son and goes with Batman, I don't know, is it because, I'm guessing it's because Batman and Darkwing didn't treat him very well.
Did you just call him Darkwing Duck? You called him Darkwing. That was funny.
That what?
You called him Darkwing.
Did I? What did I?
You called Nightwing Darkwing. It was pretty funny.
Oh, jeez. I did, didn't I?
Yeah. I'm not editing that out either. I'm keeping it in there.
You're not going to hit that? Oh, no. Great. Okay. Well, I meant, Nightwing. But, yeah, I guess that's why he went with Superman is for that, was that they did not treat him well, right?
Well, I think he had a hard time with the thought process of not killing the bad guys. Because remember, he's Talia al Ghul's son. He's grandson to Ra's al Ghul, and he was raised by the League of Assassins. So what do?
That's right.
They kill people. You kill your enemy. You don't let them live. And because Superman killed the Joker, of course Damian's going to go with Superman because it's counter to what his father would do. He sees it as a justified ends the ends justify the means. And so if anything, I think that Damian is probably the character that is most true to himself on Superman's team, but I don't think that he's right in any way, shape, or form. He's a little bitch.
Yeah. And like I said, his storyline I don't profess to know a whole lot. I'll be honest, I haven't read up on his stuff, but the little bit I did read, it just seemed like that Nightwing in particular, he was training him or something, and he kept just hounding him, and it seemed like he just wasn't treated very well. But I forgot about the fact that on top of being Batman's son, he was an Al Ghul. I forgot about that part. So anyway, yeah, I definitely agree. I think that he's going back to his League of Shadows philosophy.
Yeah. So in the bigger picture, though, is we're looking at what social responsibility that they have as superheroes. When you set it up and say, okay, well, here's on one side saying that we have to interfere in everything in order to have world peace, and on the other side we have, well, I don't think people need to live under an iron fist, which would be Batman's faction saying, I don't think people need to live under an iron fist. And you really don't have to read all the comics to expand on it and kind of go from there.
Yeah. And at some point, you wonder if this was ever inevitable. Could ever come to this? If it just got to the point where Superman said, "Okay, that's enough. You humans don't know crap. This is it." On top of having the catalyst of what happened with Lois Lane and everything else. I just wonder if at some point this was going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm. I also wonder, though, too, is it a clever comic book idea, or was this some sort of a social statement from the comic book writers?
Maybe. That's true.
I mean, I don't have anything to validate that, but it's kind of like, are they saying that this is the way things are going? Maybe do we have an oppressive government that's telling us what to do, and should we rise up, much like Batman, take some magic pills and open up a can of whoop-ass?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily think so, because the initial one came out, how many years has it been now? Has it been like 8-10 years that it first came out?
Right. Yeah, because I seem to, it was 2013.
Wow, okay. That might be.
If I remember correctly, I was looking at the date when I was kind of refreshing myself a little bit. I was kind of looking back at the date. I think it was 20. Well, no. When did the video game come out? Because the video game is what really started this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got the original video game, so I didn't think that I've been playing video games. It can't be that damn long. I don't know. But it's got to be. It was 2013. It's got to be at least 6 or 7 years, because they came out with a second Injustice comic series, and that's already done, I think. I don't know. Don't quote me. We're not talking specifically about Injustice Gods Among Us, people. We're talking about the ethics behind Injustice Gods Among Us and social responsibilities that superheroes have. Exactly.
Actually, Amazon just recently came out with a series called The Boys. Have you seen this?
Yeah, that's a really good series.
Yeah, same same thing. These superheroes with these powers, dealing with the ethics and everything else, but inherently they, in behind the scenes, they're not very good people. In the public view, but when they're not in the public view, or when it can be covered up, they commit horrible things. They do horrible ththings.
Right, and so, and apparently that's a comic series. Apparently, that's a comic book.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know which publisher does it, but that's what I was told. It's either a graphic novel or, quote, a comic book series.
Oh, okay. But it also raises that, that whole interesting dynamic of, between being ethical and not, and then how much should they interfere. Of course, through the series, they're being put more on government missions as they go along, and it's like, okay, are they slowly worming their way into more dominant control? But it was a good series because it immediately showed the bad side of those heroes, and you have an innocent one coming in, with the girl, and I forget her name.
Oh yeah, I can't remember her name.
The one that glows. I can't remember her name. But her coming in and immediately seeing the bad side of these so-called superheroes that, before she didn't know about, because of course the public think they're all wonderful and great. And
right, and she herself was pretty a good person.
Right. Yeah, she was
like Starlight or something like that.
Starlight, yeah. Yeah, and she does at some point try to become like them and do things that but then she kind of changes her mind, but she still stays pretty much good. But I like the way that they did introduce these characters right away, showing their bad side.
Well, it makes you wonder. It's just another spin-off, really, of that idea of, is it right for the superheroes to intervene in the first place?
Right.
Or should they intervene if it's who's doing the oversight on it? Much like then they've got when you're talking about Marvel, where they've got their the whatever Accords or whatever they're called. Sokovia Accords. Yeah, where they've got the Sokovia Accords, and they're saying you should have this oversight, and you should have oversight. And deciding on, it's just like anything else, deciding on when you should intervene, when you shouldn't intervene. And of course, just like us as a country, we intervene when it's in our best interest, or if there's a problem. It's hard for me to sit here and say that we intervene for completely humanitarian reasons, when I don't think that's true. When you look at Rwanda, where everybody was getting their arms chopped off and their legs chopped off, and all we did was send NATO. That's not... Clearly, we didn't have anything to gain by going to Rwanda, so we're not doing the right things.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, you see the same thing in The Watchmen, right? They show in The Watchmen, like, what would it have been like when they ask Dr. Manhattan to end the Vietnam War, and he goes and wins the war for him.
Right.
So really, we've seen a lot of ethical questions throughout a lot of these comics, not just this one where somebody's going to drop the iron fist on everybody.
Well, and you wonder why now is all of this coming out? Why not just leave them be the pure godlike creatures that they are, and not start showing the evil side of them? Why would comics turn that way?
Well, it makes a good story, and obviously they sit around in a writer's room and say, well, what if? And probably this is not a new idea. It's probably an old idea, but now there's publishers that are letting them expand instead of just showing everybody as a Boy Scout.
And the thought kind of occurred to me on top of, maybe, I don't know, making a better story, but does making them have both a good and a bad side make them more relatable, but I kind of lost my train of thought there. But
you mean like targeting towards the reader, because we're kind of sick of, and I think that's why I don't like Superman.
Because he's so inherently good.
Yeah, because he's so goody-goody, and he's supposed to be truth, justice, and the American way, or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That's why I like Batman.
Because he's got that ruthless side to him.
Yeah, but in my opinion, he could be more ruthless. Because, and like I said, this is why we should have a discussion about Batman. In my opinion about Batman is, are you a better person because you're not killing people? Because you sure seem to cripple everybody. Because if you actually did the stuff that you do, you pretty much cripple everyone. So you took away their way of life, and that's not ethical. It would have been far better if you killed them.
Yeah. But that was his form of punishment.
Well, I mean, that's extreme punishment. That's some seriously extreme punishment.
Extreme.
That's some seriously extreme punishment.
Well, and I think that's why, at first Batman and Superman had that contention, because Superman thought he was too extreme too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But, it just seems like to me that there is a statement. I think you're, when we talked about this before, that are the comic book writers or the writers of these shows or or these spinoffs, are they making a statement? Is there maybe, we should show the evil that's behind the power?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where the thought process for the boys was,
right.
To show the evil behind the power and to show how easy it was for them to, have so much control over, whether it's society or not necessarily government, because government was trying to control them, but you can kind of see how they were worming their way in through that. But anyway, that's what I wonder is, was it purely entertainment, or was there a statement there somewhere?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to dive into it just a little bit more to see if that's... I think what probably would be a good idea is look at the time frame of when they wrote... we'll just using Injustice: Gods Among Us, see what the time frame is when they made the comic, the first the digital comic, or they came up with the idea for the video game, and see what was happening in the world at the time. That might be helpful.
Yeah.
And then come up, just kind of have that discussion itself. But like I said, I think we're going to have more than one discussion, because we're at an hour and 20 minutes, and we want to keep our listeners. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll stop it here at part 1, and we'll pick up later, and we'll dive a little bit further into this for our next podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about this first one then.
Yeah.
Besides our technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Apologize for that. That's fine. We had fun. we had fun just catching up anyway. So it happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I will say, then I'm going to end this podcast and let our listeners know that once again, we're going to be rebranding in the future, but Micah and I will continue this discussion on the ethics in relation to the comics and the superheroes. And so just stay tuned for that. And adios, much fuckos.
Adios. Thank you very much.